Hello and welcome to the social listening segment here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa, and with me is,
Onyeka Valentine.
of course, we're taking a look at some of the major stories making the rounds across social media. Now, we start today with a story where Netflix has once again raised the subscription fees in Nigeria, which has sparked a little bit of conversations here and there. Now, the streaming giant has raised its premium plan from 7,000 naira to 8,000 naira. That's a 21% jump. Now, the standard now goes for 6,500 naira, basic at 4,000 naira, and the mobile plan is now 2,500 naira. This is Netflix's first price hike in 2025, but it's third since early 2024. And it's raising concerns among subscribers already dealing with inflation, just as we mentioned earlier, and rising living costs. Valentine, streaming platforms were once the affordable alternative to cable. What do you think about this, increase? Are you a subscriber, firstly?
Well, yeah, well, because we're journalists, I have to subscribe, right? So I can get some news on different areas. Of course, if it's entertainment, whatever it is, information general is important, right? But before we even go any further about the increment or whatever it is, look, why do we have a generation that is complaining when before Netflix we used to have only NTA? You see, I keep telling people, look, when you spoon feed a generation too much, they begin to have entitlement mentality. Now, I understand it's business for Netflix, right? Why they increase or not, whatever it is, but let's assuming the issue of Netflix wasn't on the table and you had free to air, for instance, they will still complain. I'm not making a case for Netflix. I'm only saying that if there is an increment in a particular subscription, you have options, right? Are we crying foul when we know that the economy as a whole is tough? I don't know if one way or the other, maybe incrementing other things like whatever it is in the country is affecting them to run their office, which obviously is not. But whichever it is, if you remove Netflix from the case, they will complain about something, right? If it's not complaining about something else, it's about issue of maybe the economy or whatever it is. So for me, I think this shouldn't be an issue at all. Let us go back to status quo. Before all this streaming on phones and everything, we had a traditional way of either watching TV or whatever it is. People never complain about it. So if they want to increase it, look, you decide. I want to continue subscribing or not. It's not you're not forced, right, to want to subscribe. Yes, just ask me right now, do I have a subscription? Have I subscribed or do I use Netflix? I said yes, because it is a reason why I'm a journalist. I'm into the media and stuff. But if you look at it in real sense, what are we complaining about? What is the complaint?
Now, you don't see a reason for a complaint.
I don't see any reason.
Really?
Is it either you want to use it or not?
No, but people like to have some form of entertainment. You want to watch the movies across the world. Netflix provides you that. There are other options of maybe doing it on Amazon Prime and all of that, those things. But the reason why Netflix seems a little bit more useful for us around here is because the likes of Amazon, you might not be able. I think
you want to watch movies.
No, I think there's some challenges of registration,
right.
I mean, around here. So Netflix still seems to be that one that you can easily make use of here in Nigeria.
Let me tell you, I think people who are complaining are the people who actually make money off this thing. And so they're saying, wait a minute, if this thing gets a bit off the board, it will affect their, their inflow, or put it this way, affect their income. There are some platforms out there that make money off this. Let's be honest. Those platforms are the ones pushing this narrative that this is increasing. How are we going to keep up with this? And we're going to lose people who are going to, who are patronizing us. I know Netflix, one way or the other, how they make their money when it comes to movies. People who are in the movie industry, get paid by Netflix to do one or two things. But let's be honest. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, cost of living itself is getting high. The question we should ask is, if they have to increase it, is there something that is causing it? Is there a backstory? Because I always believe there's always a backstory.
A backstory?
Yes. Is there someone who is saying, look, we can shut you guys down, or if you guys don't give us some form of percentage, or increase our deal or something? That's how you see things. Now, Netflix would have said, maybe, look, we can't do this. This is going to spoil our business. Well, is that you do it, or we chase you out?
Yeah.
And so they have no choice to now increase it. You see, that's why initially I mentioned, I said, before Netflix, we had our original, free to air. Yeah, they're free to air.
How many movies did you watch?
Well,
are you joking?
Back in the days, we had a Village Headmaster.
Back in the days, and it wasn't on Nigerian movies that were not even properly made. Now, thank God that Nollywood has revamped. The Nollywood we have now is not the Nollywood we used to have then.
Netflix has
and then even the Nollywood movies that you have now, they are box office movies and they're Netflix movies. So
I will make a case for those who used to make create a business, right? When it has to do with those Alaba people who, back in the days, you go there and you buy CDs and all that. I'll make a case for them. They're out of business too. So if Netflix, let them increase their whatever it is. Like for me, I can decide to say, okay, you know what? I go original. I go to free to air and turn on my TV and watch what I want to watch. But again, it's not sustainable, let's be honest. The world has moved further. And I want to be serious about it. And let me don't act like someone who's not with the trend.
Or you want to take us back to the days where you go and borrow a cassette and then you
slot it in.
You slot it in, then the waiting process, just to watch a movie where you can just take your phone.
At least let's strike a balance. They've increased it, right? Nigerians will still subscribe. I know for sure. But if we don't cry out now, one day we'll wake up and then it is maybe 20,000 naira or more to keep climbing. So I understand if there is an eyebrow being raised that this thing has now increased. But again, what is the backstory? Is there some regulatory bodies telling them, look,
you have to increase.
You have to increase to meet up with our own demand too.
Okay, let's see some of the reactions.
So you see
you
see where I stand from that angle.
What people are crying about this time around, but let's see what they're saying. The Throne says 8,500 naira just to watch movies in this kind of economy. They are out here increasing subscription fees like people have, have constant electricity. Netflix clearly doesn't care anymore. Honestly, someone needs to remind them that this is Nigeria and not America. More reactions. The real Gulu says, how do you just pump the price of a subscription many times over in one move? Your competitor Showmax is currently giving 50% off. I wish we didn't have to be mentioning all of these brands, really, because as a journalist, later when the platform crumbles, you come and say you made the right decision and it still went down. More reactions to this story. Dottie Big says, person go subscribe to GSTV, still subscribe to Netflix. How much are they collect for salary?
You see what I was talking about?
Rising inflation, really. More reactions. Loved Carefully says, still hasn't doubled from what was being charged in 2022. Netflix is not your problem. Every other thing in this economy is increasing times 2, 3, 4. Thank you, Netflix, for not dealing with us according to Tinubunomics. So what this person is saying is, you know what, that amount is actually not too much. Maybe it's still reasonable. But those are the reactions. But let's see more stories on social listening today because we don't have a lot of time. Now to digital banking. Now USSD charges are changing as customers will now have the fees deducted straight from their airtime, not their bank account. Following a new directive from the Nigerian Communications Commission, which is just here, banks will no longer deduct USSD transaction charges from customers' bank accounts. Instead, those charges will now be taken directly from users' airtime balances. This change took effect from Tuesday, June 3rd, as part of efforts to finally resolve the long-standing 250 billion naira USSD debt between banks and telecom operators. UBA has already notified its customers of this shift, and going forward, using those codes for balance checks or transfers will come at a cost, deducted straight from your phone credit. Valentine again, do you think this is a good idea? I really love when I saw the stories this morning, and when we're picking the stories, I just knew like it's just reflects the economy, increase here and there, charges here and there. Have you noticed that since the start of this year, this week, we've been talking about fines here, charges here, increase here. Different things are happening.
For me, look, if we're going to get charged an extra, right? An extra bulk or extra couple or extra whatever it is, let the services, right, also increase. Now, we're talking about you being charged with an extra when it comes to SMS and all that stuff. Have you noticed sometimes when you do a transaction, you don't even get any SMS? You wonder, 2-3 days, and you're wondering that this person sent you money. You've not even gotten any SMS. But all of a sudden, you just check your app and you see a huge, deduction in your account. But you're not sure if the transaction actually went through. Now, for some people, they have had cases where they have to quarrel with the POS agent or whatever it is to say, look, this transaction did not go now. You say, no, it went back and forth. Meanwhile, you've been deducted money. So if you're going to deduct money from a transaction, let it be that at least you update me on time, not getting the text messages 2 days after.
So you are good with the charges?
I think I'm fine with the charges.
So you're good with them even making charges to
at least the charges are being known, and from what they said, at least for a good reason. But my own is, let those charges, right, be charged, and let us get the value of it.
Well, let's see some of the reactions on social media. Let's see if the people are thinking the way you're thinking, because you seem to be okay. You have money. Now, this person said most people complaining here don't understand. They have been charging for USSD transactions, but the money is always being deducted from the bank.
That's my point.
What they're saying here is that they should be deducting airtime instead. But bank charges are too much. Lately, though. So this person is also complaining. Now, this one says, shouldn't the country be encouraging cashless policies to ensure more traceable transactions? Why does it look like we have men operating analog brains running this country? Banks in Western countries don't change.
That was a mean one, by the way.
Don't charge same currency transactions regardless of how it's done. That was very, very, very mean. Actually, let's see more reactions on social media. Charles says, not everyone can afford smartphones or data plans. USSD is the only option for millions. This move makes life harder for the same people already struggling to survive. More reactions. Abubakar 7071 says, so now, instead of fixing the USSD debt issue responsibly, they are pushing the cost to already struggling Nigerians. First fuel, then power, airtime, SMS charges, data, and now airtime, USSD bank transfer. Everything is just a way to drain the masses. Honestly,
like I said before, because whether or not we like it, right? Some form of tax or charges will come your way. I mean, as it stands right now, it's not as if it's so humongous that it will break your bank. But truth be told, give us value for these charges.
You see the way I looked at you with side eyes?
Look at me. I'm just telling you. Because let's be honest. Look, if at the end of the day they say, okay, they're charging you for SMS, they're charging you for this, charging for transaction. I want a case where if you're going to charge for transaction, let it be that transaction updates me properly. So I don't think that whoever I'm doing business with is either lying to me or not. Like I said before, look, you buy something, right? And you probably use your phone and you transfer the money. Okay? The person says, I didn't get the money. Well, no, I sent you the money. And you're going back and forth. I've had cases where the person who you've done business with and you've collected the goods is saying, oh God, no, I didn't get the money. And that can actually spoil relationship, So if I'm going to get deducted or I'm going to pay for transaction, then make sure the transaction, both parties are not kept hanging anyway. Not 2 days after, you're now seeing a deduction, or you're seeing, even worse, a reversal. Meanwhile, you've collected the goods. They still deducted you already. So,
so you're just all about just more
efficiency.
So you don't care about charges. Look, we're charging you for sitting on this in this chair. In fact, we should start charging for everything now.
But
so
let the chair still allow me to balance properly.
That's why we're charging now. So let's move finally to the next story, where the federal government is warning tertiary institutions to stop setting up satellite campuses without proper approval. Now, in a memo which was dated May 30th, the Minister of Education raised concerns over the growing number of unauthorized satellite campuses being run by federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. Now, the ministry says this trend is affecting quality control, regulation, and overall educational standards. Now, institutions have now been directed to seek formal approval before setting up any new branch, with no exceptions. Well, we've moved from charges, we've moved from costs, we've moved from inflations. Now we're talking about some sort of quality control in the educational sector. I'm all for that. Let's see some of the reactions before I'll come to your own reaction. David Yakubu says, that's a very welcome idea because some lecturers use that to milk the students dry, mostly the part-timers. More reactions. Ade Agbo says, these unapproved satellite campuses divert limited resources, which is detrimental to educational standards. The focus must be on improving established ones and not setting up new ones without adequate backing. I agree with that one. Adetunji says, quality education can be built on shortcuts. This crackdown is overdue. No more playing with standards. Nigeria's future depends on it. Leke says, it is ridiculous that many satellite campuses in Nigeria don't have the necessary academic and infrastructural backing, undermining education quality and sustainability. Dr. Tunji Alausa is taking the right step to ensure this ends, and it says #Alausa Ed Reform, which is educational reform. So those are some of the reactions on social media.
If you look at it clearly, you see that what is happening here is we're working too hard and not smartly, right? The time has come. We now live in an age where you have online learning. Okay, I think back in the days, the reason why those satellite campuses were created is to help, mitigate the stress of transportation and, you traveling long distance when you can go to a satellite campus and get what you need. However, like the other message rightly said on X, that, they're milking students. But let's look at it from a different angle. Because whichever way it goes, you will still have to pay money. But the question now is, are you getting the proper, are you being tutored properly? And if where you stay is a bit far from the major campus or the major university, there's transportation that you have to spend going that way, which brings me to the next thing. This satellite campus we're talking about, there's no way a satellite campus will be existing that the federal government will not be aware of it. Unless maybe one way or the other, it is a hidden something. I think what the complaint should be, are they well equipped? That's one. Two, are we getting quality education from those satellite campuses? Because whether or not you like it, you need those satellite campuses to help you, decentralize a little bit. And again, like I said, we are in an era where we need to work smartly instead of hard. Right? There are a lot of universities right now around the world where before you even finally get to see the university, it could be maybe when you want to, graduate or something, you can now travel there. Most of the courses are online, and you study, you do examinations, and you do all that stuff online. Right? So for me, I don't think the case is about whether they're using it to milk students. The major case should be, is it well equipped? If so, right on.
I think that was the idea. They're talking about the fact that they want to. It's not about milking students. It's about trying to make sure that there's some sort of quality control. Because have you not noticed sometimes that it's like when. This is not the best example, but it's like when you say a physical event and a virtual event. Whether you like it or not, most of the time the physical event always has all of the elements.
There's impact.
Completely, much more than virtual. Now, for satellite schools, I've met some people and they said to me, I'm in XYZ school. Firstly, I don't see them as being in that school. So I'm like, really? Then I'm like, is it like, so then I start asking about certain people, maybe a lecturer that I know, because if they tell me their department and something, and I'm like, do you know this man in your school? People that I know, and then maybe and they now tell me, oh no, I'm in satellite, and I can just
annex.
see they don't even seem like they're in school.
So there is a disconnect.
There's a disconnect
mentally,
so it seems like they need to be in that main school, because I don't want to mention names, because when they tell me that school, that's why I have to ask that question. Do you know this man? Do you know that man? I even send a message to certain people like, oh, do you know? And they say, when I ask all those questions, I say, oh no, I mean the one in them. There's one in Ikorodu. Maybe like I'm in
wonder which satellite campus is that?
Really? When that exist? I didn't even know you guys had one that existed there. And they said yes, there is something. So it seems like there's a disconnect. The way they're being taught is, I don't understand. So they really need to check it if that has to occur, because yes, we know that we're trying to, like you said, work smart, work. You know, we're trying to also reach the underserved
There's transportation
areas,
to be spent.
right?
If everybody has to go to a particular point,
it has to be the same standard. If you are doing I don't want to mention any names. If you are doing a course in maybe some university abroad and you're doing it here in Nigeria, it's still the same standard. The only difference is you are not within the walls of the university. You're not having that human connection, quotes, physical human connection, because you're speaking to people online, all of those things. But if the curriculum is the same, the learnings are the same and all of that. So we need to work on that. If not, let them they have to go through the standard process.
And on the flip side, I've also seen some universities that have everybody encompassing in a particular spot. Yet, the standard is low. So what happens? On the flip side,
those ones need to work on their. I mean, you can't take away the fact that there are still some.
So we name the university. They're there.
No, we're not going to name. We're not going to take away the fact that we still need universities that need to work on. You know,
exactly
what it is.
They have everybody.
They need to work on
all the departments. Every department, faculty, everything in a particular spot. But yet the standard of learning is below standard. So if you look at it,
there is that. There are universities that have low standards. That I don't even know how they are universities in the first place.
Well, they are.
But for the ones that are even good, and they have some satellites here and there that we don't even know. And to be honest, I think it's even mostly these universities that have poor standards that have this satellite that are not.
Wait a minute. So that sounds like the subtle shade.
No, it's not really.
It's a shade you just threw down. Hold on.
Not really.
Let's go ahead.
Oh my goodness, we have to go now. We have to move on from this conversation.
Right.
But it was really interesting on the conversations on social listening segment. Which of the stories was your favorite?
For me, so I know I prefer the second story. Why? Because to be told, it was closer to home than ever. Although one of the university
charges.
Yes. Because like I said, if I have to be charged for something, give me efficiency. I don't want to be quarreling with people when someone calls me and tells me, sorry sir, you were the one that did transaction with us the other day. You bought so this and that from a restaurant,
You seem to have this experience.
And I say,
you didn't pay us our money.
Yes. That is embarrassing. So if they're listening, it's embarrassing. If they're going to charge me, allow me to enjoy efficiency.
All right, I think for me, all of the stories from Netflix increasing, which is reflective of the rising cost, and I did understand also where you were talking about. Perhaps there's also a backstory. Then talking about the USSD charges, to me, it's like we've been charged for every single thing since the start of this year. Last year, in fact, we've been this charge, that charge, and finally, this one on satellite investors it's really important for me, because I'm all about, when we talk about the global goals, for me, one that is really very, very important to me is education, improved education.
Very true.
Improved access to good education and all of that, because I know how much education can change a society.
Most definitely. I mean, it's the major bedrock for the growth of any society.
Absolutely.
So if they're going to have satellite campuses, let the strength be equally as strong as the middle center, instead of spreading your energies and having weaker links. No. And hey, let's work smart and not just hard.
Absolutely. This has been the social listening segment here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And I'm Anyuka Valentine.
Keep watching BDTV.